Time now to spotlight Supermicro, which is the worst performer in the S&P 500 today. Joining us now for insight, we've got Matt Tuttle, CEO and CIO, Tuttle Capital Management. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. So, look, you had both weakness in this results for the trailing quarter. The guidance is an issue, obviously, here. They reported the pre-report, essentially, the preliminary results there. EPS adjusted 29 to 31 cents. Revenue 4.5 to 4.6 billion. The street was expecting more than 5 billion. What's your reaction to these latest results, Matt?
Yeah, so we own it. I wrote about it in the newsletter this morning. Right now, I'm holding on to it. I'm not buying the dip. I'm not selling. We see this more of a timing issue at the moment than a demand issue, which is why I'm holding on to it. And quite honestly, if I were a long-term investor, I would be buying the dip right now. We do see their servers as the leader when it comes to, the future of AI. We think these guys are going to be a big winner. The only reason I'm not buying the dip is, I'm seeing some support areas in the 27s and the 26s. So I want to give this some time to play out, but certainly could see this maybe moving down a bit lower and then trying to fill that gap from 6 days ago.
Now, they talked about some delays, like essentially some customers pushing back their timeline and that obviously affected sales. And then they noticed some higher inventory reserves, they noted. Does that give you any cause for concern?
So it doesn't, because it looks like all of this, once the new Blackwell chips come out, it looks like all of this is just going to be pushed into the fourth quarter, and that'll be fine. Certainly, I'm looking at the whole AI infrastructure, what's going on with Nvidia, Huawei, CapEx, all of those things, which is another reason I'm not necessarily buying the dip. I mean, if we were back pre-DeepSeek days, probably be buying this dip hand over fist, but we're not, so I'm a little bit cautious. But no, none of that gives me concern at the moment.
Okay, so it doesn't give you concern at the moment. You mentioned Nvidia. It is under some pressure today along with the broader market, especially, obviously, all of this seems to make sense with the, kind of deteriorating economic picture that we're getting on the macro front, GDP contracting for the first quarter. What are your views on what the chip market will look like from here?
So, we're not in any of the chip companies at the moment. Again, if I were a long-term investor, I think Nvidia is a must-own. I'm not in it now. We do run a 2x long and short on it, so it's something I watch very closely. I'm a bit worried about this Huawei news, but I think after Mag 7 earnings, Nvidia is probably something I'd want to go back into. The other chip companies, not yet, Intel, AMD, those just always seem like such dumpster fires. I think Nvidia is the one you want to own. I'm just not sure you want to own it today.
So a bit with regard to Huawei, is the concern that they could meaningfully dent demand as it relates to Nvidia's market share?
Yeah, I mean, to make AI work, you need Nvidia's chips. If that changes everything. So, anytime you see news, around competition, that's always going to give me a little bit of pause. Again, I'm sure, by next week, I'll probably be back into Nvidia, depending on how things play out. I do think they're going to be the long-term winner, but I'm certainly keeping an eye on that Huawei news.
Okay, and then I want to ask just your thoughts on the guidance cut from Supermicro. Does it give you any pause? I know you essentially look at it as a hold now, but in terms of its positioning in the AI server space, does it give you any concern about that?
I mean, a little bit. There's a lot of competition. I think they've got the ability to crush the competition with what they bring to the table, but they still have to execute. So, again, some we're keeping an eye on. Another reason why I'm not, going in and buying this dip just yet.
Okay, all right. Right now, Supermicro down 14%. Knock-on effect happening to Dell and HP also. That's Matt Tuttle, CEO and CIO, Tuttle Capital Management. Thank you, Matt.